there's some advice that we give over here on the podcast, some tips and tricks that people think are impractical, or at the very best, they don't see any good reason for going ahead with those tips. So, one of them is the debrief suggestion that I've made time and time again about how if you don't close the deal, whether it's in a wedding context or in a corporate context, we still have set follow-up scripts, follow-up ideas, relationship building ideas that you carry on with. So even though you have lost the sale. So it's something that I've said to some people in person before, but it's not something I've explored on the podcast about how sometimes I'm not concerned about losing the first transaction, losing the first wedding from the bride, so long as I can get some residual income in the future. So whether it's referrals because she thinks I was the much more trusted vendor, the more credible vendor, but we couldn't go ahead because of price, or maybe it's other things after the wedding. So I keep a residual mindset, basically. And so these are some of the reasons why we have come up with the scripts, the approaches, and the frameworks here for keeping in touch, even though you lost the sale initially. Now, I realize that I haven't come up with any concrete examples for you guys about why these things are important and how they relate to actual practice, just beyond this whole thing of speaking in theory about residual income and about repeat business and referrals. So there's an example that I would like to share with you guys, but it's non-wedding related. However, I'm sure you guys will find that either the principles apply or that in your other hustles, because as far as I know, wedding industry professionals, at least the ones I run, I roll with in Abuja, we're all involved in doing other stuff. So yes, we shoot weddings, but then we're also open to other kinds of events, even if that includes corporate events. So this one is a much more of a corporate type scenario, and in fact, my video guy, Shegun, who doesn't exactly agree with all the ideas I espouse, he does agree with that in this context, when it comes to a business-to-business context, if you're dealing with corporate clients, then yes, maybe it's worth going through the hassle, because as far as he's concerned, he sees the link between we may have lost the sale today, but we can clinch the sale tomorrow, and if we have them on roster, if they have us on roster rather as credible service providers, then there's going to be lots of money to make in the future. So where was I? Okay, yeah, so this is a much more corporate type scenario. So basically, a friend of mine in the NGO space hits me up. She's going to send my phone number to someone, and the person eventually did get in touch, and it turns out that it was AIG, because they have some corporate leadership type seminar or training or something like that to run 5 days in Abuja. So the person reaches out, the usual spiel, how much does it cost? And if you've been listening to the podcast for any length of time now, you know, of course, what my approach is, that I don't give a number, I give a range and ask more questions so that we can narrow it down. And so that's the whole process that we went through, and she even got in touch later on to, ask her clarifying questions, especially when it came to revising the quote, because eventually the program got changed from a 5-day program to a 2-day program. And so at some point I thought, okay, we might be making some progress here. Anyway, bottom line, we didn't get through. We didn't get the deal, and decided to go with another outfit. And this is the point where it concerns you guys over here on the podcast. Now, for those of you who are long-term listeners of the podcast, you will know that my recommendation when it comes to these kinds of situations, especially in the corporate context, is we've lost the deal, no problem. But still, you reach out to them anyway, saying, in summary, saying thank you very much for inquiring. I hope if you don't mind, I'd like to call you, ask you a couple of questions so that we can improve business delivery. That's one angle you can go. Some people just go straight up saying, if you don't mind, we would like to ask some questions about the bid to find out any reason where we could have done better. So whatever approach you take, the whole thing of, please, could you help me out? I'm trying to improve business delivery. or could you lend me 5 minutes because I want to find out what we could have done better. Whatever approach it is that you do, it is worth the hassle. Now, I know some of you are going to say, why should I bother? I already lost the deal, most likely lost the deal on price. If you've been listeners to the podcast for a long time, and if you've been following me on Medium and on Twitter, you already know the story about how I lost the British Council deal for the Kalmar project. That is the Kano, Language and Mathematics Accelerator Program, something like that. Anyway, basically, you're trying to get the kids up north to be much more fluent in English and math skills, and I lost the bid on that. I thought it was priced, but it turned out to be a credibility thing because they knew that I was going to use subcontractors for the gig. But the thing is, the people on the team know me, and they would have preferred working with me directly rather than me using subcontractors. So it's because I reached out that I found that information. A lot of you would just assume that, okay, we lost out based on price. And so the next time that they call up, you now start negotiating with yourself and you figure, okay, last time I quoted 5M. So this time, let me just quote 4M, on the job. So sometimes it's not always about price. So reach out. If you haven't heard that episode before, then, okay, I think I'll try and find out what the episode is, and then I'll include that in the show notes so that if you're interested, after you listen to this, just check the show notes and you'll get back, you'll be able to get the good stuff from that episode. Okay, so now back to this current scenario. So I send the email because most of these NGO types, I don't know why, they seem to be mostly email people. I guess it's because the line manager wants to see everything in writing, and so therefore they're going to do everything with the vendors' emails just so that line manager and all the higher-ups can be satisfied and they can easily vet everything that was said. So I sent the email, no response, and I sent the email. That was on a Friday. I said I was going to be in touch next week, and then next week rolls around. Monday, I make the call. She doesn't answer, and like I recommend, I sent the text message, pretty much just reiterating the whole thing. That, hey, I tried calling a couple of moments ago, and the reason why is because, yada, 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 improving business delivery, the whole script, the whole spiel that I just gave early on at the beginning of the podcast. And so she responds with a text message. And later on. And so the text message, the summary basically was that, well, the reason why she didn't answer the phone was because she didn't have any feedback from me because she wasn't part of the decision-making process. Now, some of you would say, well, that was wasted effort because you didn't learn anything. But this is a perfect example to show how it doesn't matter how much small the intelligence you get, it actually is worth something. So now I know, let's say her name is Funke, not her real name. So let's say I know her name is Funke. So from this exchange that we've had right now, the emails and everything with Funke, I now know that she is not part of the decision-making committee. And that is useful because it now means that the next time round that they get in touch because AIG is planning something else in Abuja, especially since Funke and I have got a little bit of a relationship going, we've had a few phone calls, we've exchanged a few emails, I'll be able to go straight up and cut the bullshit from the beginning to find out that, hey, don't just put us on cruise like the last time. So who is a part of the committee? Who is making the decision? Is it the other guy, Kunle, that you said we're going to liaise with during the program? Is Kunle the one who is running short on this thing? Because we have a relationship, I'll be able to just straight up and no bullshit the situation. And with that in mind, I'll be able to make sure that the next time AIG comes around, I'll be able to speak to the people who are supposed to, who are relevant with making the decision. And when you're speaking to the decision makers this time, then your chances for closing the deal go up considerably. So this is just an example to show you how sometimes a lot of these tips and tricks and suggestions might lead to wasted efforts. But sometimes you come up with some juicy information which might be useful in the long term. So right now, I know that she's not a part of the decision-making committee, and that the next time they call, I should do my best to make sure that the people who are going to have a seat at the table, that I'm having conversations with them. So thank you very much, guys, for listening to the Sales for the Nigerian Wedding Industry podcast. I'm your host, Abuja-based event and wedding photographer Taveshima Ayede. And yes, the noise that you hear in the background is the kids, so I have to run to find out what shenanigans they're up to this time. So thank you very much for listening. I will catch you guys at the next recording.